he has given so much power to Elon Musk, and Musk is taking full advantage of it. My understanding is that his people have gone into the Treasury Department and locked out the civil service career employees who are responsible for paying the debts of the United States. That is, it's basically the checkbook of the United States.
Well, we're going to carry on talking about Donald Trump for the next couple of minutes or so, and we know that he is a fan of the executive order. Last night, God, he had a busy night. He signed another one, withdrawing the US from the UN Human Rights Council over what the White House is calling anti-American bias. He has also started to draw up an order aimed at dismantling the Department of Education. Since taking office just over 2 weeks ago, he's signed a total of 45 executive orders, and on his first day signed the largest number any president has issued on their inauguration day. But what are the limits to his power, and does Congress have the ability to block these things? Let's talk to Suzanna Sherry, who is a chair in law emeritus and expert in US constitutional law at Vanderbilt University Law School. You're very well qualified to talk about this, Suzanna Sherry. Welcome to our programme. Can you start by just assuming quite a high level of ignorance on our part and talk us through what exactly an executive order is?
Well, an executive order is essentially a pronouncement by the president that has the force of law. And every president from George Washington forward has issued executive orders.
So can a president issue an executive order about anything?
Well, the president can issue an executive order if he has the power to do so. And his power comes from three sources. One is he's the head of the executive branch. So he can tell the executive branch officials, cabinet secretaries, heads of departments, and so on. He can tell them what to do. And in fact, most executive orders, including most of Trump's, come from that power. He also has some authority that's given to him by Congress. For example, in immigration law, he has, under the Immigration and Naturalization Act, he has the power, for example, to suspend or restrict entry into the United States if entry would be, quote, detrimental to the interests of the United States. And that's sort of fuzzy, and the boundaries are not clear. But he has some power, and then he has some powers under the Constitution. He is, for example, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and so he has control over the military. And he also, Trump himself has claimed he has other constitutional powers, like the power to protect states against invasion. It's not clear whether he actually has those powers under the Constitution.
So that's so interesting, Suzanna. So when you say it's not clear, what happens in a circumstance of things not being clear? Who challenges that lack of clarity?
Well, somebody who's affected by the order. So, for example, you might have heard about the Birthright Citizenship Executive Order, which purported to deny citizenship to children born in the United States if their parents were not either citizens or long-term legal residents. And both some organizations representing individuals, as well as some states that would lose federal money if these people weren't citizens, sued in federal court, and a judge issued what's called a temporary restraining order, and probably will eventually issue a permanent injunction against that executive order. So there's always somebody who's affected by an executive order, and that person or persons or entities can sue, and the courts will decide whether the president actually has the power to issue the order that he did.
So can anything be done by any of the other legislative bodies and elected bodies? So Congress can't argue against an executive order?
Well, actually, Congress could pass a law and say, you can't issue this particular executive order, or Congress could pass a law, could change the Immigration and Naturalization Act and say the president does not have the power to restrict entry. Or Congress in the 1970s passed a law that said the president doesn't have the power to impound funds. That is, if Congress has allocated funds for a specific purpose, the president can't decide, no, I don't want to spend the money that way. So Congress could pass laws that would then be, that would make the executive orders inconsistent with the law and therefore illegal. The problem is, if Congress passes such a law, the president is very likely to veto it, which means the Congress would need 2/3 of both the House and the Senate to vote to override the president's veto. So it seems Congress has the power, but it seems unlikely that they will be able to exercise it.
Okay, so it does depend on the political makeup of other bodies then, doesn't it?
Yes, very much so, at least of the House and the Senate. But remember, if the president vetoes it, it takes 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate to override that. So it would have to be a large majority,
Do you
a
think
supermajority.
do you think they work?
I'm sorry, what works?
Executive orders, because what you've explained there seems to be a maelstrom of difficulties further down the line. I can understand maybe it feels like a successful executive order when it lands on impact, but actually if it then gets questioned and if it goes to individual legislation or litigation, that sounds like an almighty mess, actually.
Well, most executive orders are not as controversial and not as likely to be invalidated as a lot of Trump's. Every president comes in and on the first day rescinds many of the executive orders of the previous president. That is, if there's been a change in party. And many of them are, so for example, one of the things that Trump did was he issued an executive order that the flag, which had been the United States flag, which had been flying at half staff to memorialize the death of former President Jimmy Carter, he ordered that it be flown at full staff for the remainder of Inauguration Day. Nobody's going to challenge that. And then it didn't have much effect after Inauguration Day because it went back to half staff. That's a silly one. But there are a lot of executive orders that are basically just sort of reorganizing the executive department, not in big ways, just in small ways, or putting into place the priorities of this particular president. The reason people don't know much about executive orders is that until January 20th of this year, they weren't a big deal.
Yep. Have you been alarmed by the number that have been issued by Donald Trump, or were you expecting that he might do something like this?
I'm not alarmed by the number, although it is very high. As you said, it's a record for the first day. I'm alarmed by the content. That is, several of them are blatantly unconstitutional. Some of them are dangerous, whether they are unconstitutional or not. And I think the teaser for your later show said that Trump is shredding the United States. And I think there's something to that.
Which do you think are the most difficult ones for you so far? I know you've talked about the attempt to end birthright citizenship. What else really worries you?
Well, some of what worries me is not actually executive orders as so much as just he has given so much power to Elon Musk, and Musk is taking full advantage of it. My understanding is that his people have gone into the Treasury Department and locked out the civil service career employees who are responsible for paying the debts of the United States. That is, it's basically the checkbook of the United States, and everything from Social Security payments to salary of government officials, and all of the private information that goes with that is now open to 20-something-year-olds who work for Musk. So that's not even an executive order. That's just Trump said, go do it. And he did it. Somebody's now sued. The Treasury Department, the employees of the Treasury have now sued. I suspect that there will be a temporary restraining order on that very soon. So it's not just executive orders. he is taking control of a lot of things that he probably can't take control of. And so far, there's nobody to stop him.
But, Susanna, isn't this what people voted for? It's not as if they didn't know what was likely to happen. He'd said he would do this stuff, and now he's doing it.
Well, some of the stuff he said he would do, I don't think anybody really they expected him to shrink the size of the government. I don't think they expected him to hand over that task to a millionaire or billionaire and some 20-something-year-olds.
I mean, can you explain to us what the atmosphere is like at the Vanderbilt University Law School? Do you, like some of us, wake up every morning, grab your phone and think, what now?
Yeah, I do, and I know some of my colleagues do. Some, I think, probably approve of what he's doing. It's a very political issue.
And one listener is mentioning Project 2025, and I'd vaguely heard about it, I must be honest, before the election. It wasn't something I knew a huge amount about. Is Project 2025 something that the average American citizen now talks about, worries about, or indeed thoroughly approves of?
I'm not sure I'm in touch with the average American citizen. I don't think most people had heard of it. Trump disavowed it during the campaign. It was not put together by him. It was put together by a group of conservatives, and he said no, he didn't have anything to do with it, and he wasn't going to implement it. He now is implementing it, but I don't think people care, and I don't think it matters much whether it's Project 2025 or it's just what Trump wants to do. I think there is a lot of fear and trepidation about what he will do next, even I think among people who support him. The tariffs, for example, he's backed down some, but if he imposes the tariffs that he has been promising to impose, that is going to drive inflation through the roof. And I think that will affect a lot of the people who voted for him, as well as people who didn't.
Suzanna, good to talk to you. Thank you very much for that. Suzanna Sherry is an expert in US constitutional law at Vanderbilt University Law School. And Nigel, thank you for your query about Project 2025.